This brow may look like one technique, but it's actually two. One side is microbladed and the other is the nano brow technique. Now, let's see which one really lasts.
Welcome, SofTappers!
Today we're going to be talking about nano brows.
Okay, so what are nano brows? We're just going to start right with that. What is a nano brow?
A nano brow is a machine technique and it's used to create hair strokes with a machine. A single needle that goes and makes a hair.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it's just a different term. I know it's a little bit confusing. In permanent makeup, we have a lot of terms that all kind of mean the same thing. A nano brow, is another hair stroke technique, but it is a little bit different than some other hair stroke techniques. We'll get into that. The main difference is that it's done with a machine.
Some of the benefits of a nano brow are going to be that it lasts a little bit longer than a microbladed eyebrow.
Yes, because of the way it's being deposited, the pigment being deposited into the skin, your machine is poking little tiny holes into the skin and it's depositing pigment each time it pokes into the skin, right? And of course that's happening at a fast speed. So you get a whole bunch of little tiny holes with pigment being deposited each time, and so it's more pigment. It should last longer.
Microblading, on the other hand, is a single slice of pigment, and that's it. That's as much pigment that is in there.
Right. You don't want to keep going slicing over and over and over.
Yeah, that could cause trauma to the skin.
Yeah, so that's why you don't get as much pigment there. We'll talk about that in a little bit more. For the nano brows, it's better because it's essentially less trauma to the skin, more pigment, longer lasting hair strokes.
When it's done correctly, you could do quite a lot of damage with a machine if you're not,
very true.
properly.
Any technique you can do damage with. So the nano brow, essentially, when you're using the machine, it's a very light stroke. It's not supposed to be going like really deep into the skin. But of course, with that also comes, it's going to last longer than microblading, but it's not going to last as long as you might think it's going to last, even with that technique.
Artists have reported to us that the nano brows don't really last that much longer than microblading. You might get an extra 6 months out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of work to control this machine that's moving very, very fast with a needle moving in a single line to get the same look as microblading, but a lot more effort, and you might get 6 months more out of it depending on the pigment that you're using.
So is it like the same as microblading?
No, it's not the same as microblading. You're getting the same look with slightly better longevity and a little bit different touch to the skin, but very similar. Right. It's a small area that you're working in. So a little slice on the skin versus a lot of tiny little pokes in the skin is going to heal pretty much the same way.
Right. One of the biggest differences with microblading, I think, that really confuses clients, like, oh, am I getting nano brows? Am I getting microblading? Is the term microblading is usually referring to a hand tool that's doing those little slices. The technique is also different, but as far as a client is concerned, they're just not really sure. They think it all is hair strokes, and it is all hair strokes. So we just have to be clear sometimes about the way the hair strokes are being deposited. So microblading with a hand tool and the little slices, right? Nano brows with a machine and little poke.
To make a hair.
Yes.
The end result is that it looks like hair.
Right. So that's all we can do, right? So we've got microblading, we've got nano brows. There's two different ways that we can do hair strokes.
But there's another way. Oh. So you can also tap in hair strokes. And actually at SofTap, that is how we used to do hair strokes prior to the microblading technique. So we would take a hand tool and tap in lines, and they could be either straight or curved. That's why we came out with our curved hand tools to create hair-like strokes with a hand tool.
Yeah, it's essentially the same thing as what the machine is doing for a nano brow, right? You got all those little tiny pokes, but we have those needles that are all in a line together, right? And we're making all of those little pokes at once. So you can go over it more times, deposit more pigment. The benefit to using the SofTap tool is just the amount of control that you have. You have control on the amount of pressure that you can put on the skin, and you have control in exactly where you're placing those needles, so you can get a nice thin hair stroke but still be depositing a lot of color.
So you can basically do the nano brows technique manually and just use a hand tool to do the same thing. So you're going to get that nano brows longevity, which is again a few months longer than the microbladed look and with slightly less trauma to the skin.
So which technique is the best for hair strokes?
The one that stays, the one that looks good.
It really is.
They all stay.
They do all stay. With a good artist who knows what they're doing and they can identify a skin type and what's going to last on that skin type, they know what technique they're good at, they're good at depositing pigment into the skin, you're going to get good hair stroke results with either nano brows, microblading, or hand-tapped hair strokes, depending on your artist.
Now, that being said, you can also combine techniques as well. So something that we like to do is combine the tapped hair stroke look with microblading. So you can do a really light kind of an etched microbladed pattern to get the pattern in there, and then you can go and tap over those individual hair strokes.
We have a lot of artists that really like to utilize that technique, and actually they were utilizing it during the big microblading boom, 2017, 2018. It was a very popular technique to use with hand tools.
Yeah, it's still popular. It's easy because you don't have to hook up the machine. You just, you don't even have to switch your hand tool. If you use the 17 Nano that we have, you just use the same tool to etch in your strokes and then go and tap over the base of those strokes.
Yeah, it's not just about the technique and the tool being used, but especially with hair strokes, you really want to make sure that the pigment that's being used is high quality pigment, and in particular, an inorganic mineral pigment.
The truth is you want something that does not contain carbon black as an ingredient. The reason is because it is always there and it glows out over time. So you don't stay with these really nice crispy hair strokes. They're eventually going to sort of migrate this way and become wider and softer looking. Softer is not necessarily bad, but it is when it ashes out over time, which carbon black is known to do.
Exactly.
So I would insist on your artist to not use a pigment that contains this ingredient, because over the long haul, it's not going to look really pretty.
Yeah. In particular with hair strokes, since we're talking about hair stroke techniques and nano brows and microblading, it's especially important that over time, those fine hairs do tend to kind of blow out anyways, but that's why we're just saying without the carbon, you're going to have a more forgiving fade out over time.
If you're looking for a really high quality pigment that you won't see blow out or change color, I'd highly recommend our new Softap Iconic line, because it stays pretty much the same throughout the entire journey of the permanent makeup process. It looks great going in, it looks great after a few months, looks great after a couple years, and eventually when it goes, it just fades away.
Yes.
It's the best result that I have ever seen in permanent makeup.
Yeah. We've seen great results and heard of great results from both machine artists and hand method users using it for hand tap hair strokes and microblading and nano brows. So far we've had some great feedback that we're extremely happy about. So that's a great place to start if you're looking for a good pigment to do your hair strokes with. We hope this cleared up some of the confusion around what nano brows are. Essentially, they're hair stroke brows done with a machine, but also you can do hair strokes in other ways, including with microblading or with soft tap tools to tap in hair strokes.
Please like, share, subscribe, comment below, and let us know what you think.
Yeah, check out our social media, see what people are saying about the new Iconic Pigment line. There's a lot of great feedback on there, some great pictures. You should definitely check it out at Softap Inc.
And don't forget about SofTapTraining.com to get the latest and greatest on classes, workshops, apprenticeship style programs. We have it all. And until next time,
happy tapping!